DOJ is confirming they've received a criminal referral from National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard.
The referral is related to her claims that Obama-era officials partook in a so-called, quote, treasonous conspiracy to, quote, subvert President Trump's 2016 victory.
Gabbard released records that show the U.S. intelligence community concluded in 2016, both before and after Hillary Clinton's electoral defeat, quote, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome. The issue Gabbard cites, however, is that the FBI had told the DNI office they were going to dissent from that assessment that was going to appear on a presidential daily brief. The reason was based on new guidance the FBI says they had. Now, Obama and other officials met in the Oval Office in December of that year to ask each other to look into Russian election meddling.
The Obama-era officials then produced another intelligence assessment that concluded, quote, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Democrat Senator Mark Warner downplayed Gabbard's claims. He pointed out that the Senate Intelligence Committee later reaffirmed the assessment that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. He wrote on X, quote, it is sadly not surprising that DNI Gabbard, who promised to depoliticize the intelligence community, is once again weaponizing her position to amplify the president's election conspiracy theories. It's appalling to hear DNI Gabbard accuse her own IC workforce of committing treasonous conspiracy when she was unwilling to label Edward Snowden a traitor.
Here is Gabbard on Fox News this Sunday.
This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic.
Edward Snowden is not a traitor. Edward Snowden revealed that the U.S. government was lying about spying on the American people. I think it was patriotic to call out our government from lying to us, so that's a ridiculous attitude that is not surprising to me because Mark Warner is a ridiculous deep state agent. But what do you make of the... So I addressed this at my radar yesterday. I'm going to guess you're not along Tulsi Gabbard's lines here.
How did you guess? Part of it is like, look over here, don't pay attention to Epstein. I have something better. And I think it's like diminishing almost the Republican and MAGA base. Like, hey, we're giving you some, like, we're throwing some meat, and so you can go run after that and not pay attention to Epstein, almost look over here tactic, because I think that it's completely irrelevant. And when you think about all the different agencies, so we have the Mueller investigation, DOJ, the U.S. Intelligence Agency, and even a Republican-led Senate committee, all between the time that this was brought up through 2020, have done independent investigations, some that were bipartisan committees that say, hey, yeah, Russia did have involvement and was around and doing too much within our media space, trying to get us to argue on social media, trying to cause friction. Now, Republicans won't say that it actually was collusion in the election. Democrats came up with a different conclusion. But what Americans actually want Russia involved in any part of our politics? What Americans want Russia involved in any way? And so I don't understand why we pushing back against those claims that even if Obama wanted to look into it and his entire team, we should not want foreign agents or agencies involved in any part of our conversation across the United States, right? And having them make Americans fight so that they think issues are bigger than they are, pulling up emails and going into Hillary Clinton's archives to make that public. These were proven Russia tactics. And so why do we want that involvement? If there's something that we need to find out about Hillary Clinton's emails or anything, wouldn't we want Americans to pull that forward? Wouldn't we want our own country to bring that forward rather than somebody who it looks like is in cahoots with President Trump to try to amplify his voice in the election? That's not something that anybody, Republican or Democrat, should want.
But the issue is not that. It's that initially the intelligence officials came to the conclusion that there was this very not important attempt by Russia to, they bought some Facebook ads effectively, which is not
important is so subjective.
No, it was weak. It was a drop in the bucket compared, for instance, to the money the campaigns themselves spent on Facebook ads. They were also not narrowly tailored to swing voters. It was a really low level of influence on Facebook, mostly direct. So that was a small thing. It did. You're right. It happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it was just not important. What the officials, the intelligence people, were pushing back on initially was the idea that they hacked the voting machines,
right?
Which was the impression you got from sensational coverage in the media following that meeting with Obama, where he rejected he basically handed it back to them and said, get me a report that reaches a stronger conclusion. And that's when you then concocted this whole influence narrative and blew that out of proportion, because the officials wouldn't say that, well, they might have hacked the voting machines because it was false. So now treasonous conspiracy goes a little far for me, but
they didn't hack voting machines, right? What they
and that made Obama mad.
But what they tried to do is hack voters' minds. That's called cyber warfare.
Oh my God!
That's
Am I hacking voters' mind when I say Biden's bad?
Everything is excusable to you. That's what we keep talking about.
Persuasion.
If people put up false information and they're spreading it, telling black voters to go somewhere and text this number to vote. Now you're like, oh, it's a small thing. If Russia's involved in trying to buy Facebook ads to get people to vote for Trump, it's a small thing.
How is that false information? How is buying ads that say you should vote for Trump false information?
No.
Part of those ads were trying to convince black people that Hillary Clinton's policies were not good for black people. That's not misinformation.
You want Russia deciding who votes for based on their own personal interest. And your question,
they had no power to decide. They were expressing a viewpoint,
right?
Just
because
like
they had interest in Trump being.
Well, I mean,
president.
they have free speech. They can use. I'm for free speech on social media.
And
everyone can advocate for you to invent anyone you want.
Because you're free thinking and you're maybe not impacted by any type of
advertisement. So this is how you feel about your fellow Americans, that they're so stupid.
I didn't say stupid. No, don't put words in my mouth. I said because you're free thinking and not affected by any type of advertising. Advertising works, correct, because that's why we have commercials for all the different detergents or anything that you buy often based on name and brand recognition and repetition, right?
It's not mind control.
Yeah, but is Russia being involved in our election trying to influence minds in a way that, yes, campaigns might, but we also understand who's donating. We understand what brands are behind putting money in. Democrats often fight to get more transparency in that, so we know exactly who's donating.
I would say that's kind of stupid.
Why?
Who cares?
You don't want to know who's trying to influence you, who's trying to lobby you, who's trying to get something across. You say that about drug companies. You want to know that, right?
I care more about the actual argument being presented. I care about the substance of what is said. I will address the arguments on their merits, regardless of who is saying them. So if Russia is saying Hillary Clinton is bad for some reason, it's not really fundamentally different from anyone else saying it. I will just address it on the substance of it.
And if we're addressing things off of merit, this claim from Tulsi Gabbard is completely meritless. And so I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And so again, we're going to waste Americans, taxpayers, and dollars and time.
I encourage you to read the New York Times and the Washington Post stories from that era with sensational claims about the level of Russian influence changing the outcome of the election, and suggesting that based on that, this is the policy implication, is that Trump is beholden to Putin because he owes his win to him. That was the thrust of the mainstream media coverage due to leaks and statements from anonymous intelligence officials we now know at the behest of Biden, or of Obama, excuse me. That is not a nothing burger to me at all.
The best way forward, in your opinion, is for Tulsi Gabbard to relitigate this entire thing the same way that Trump had asked to not continue to relitigate anything going on with him, and he wanted to move forward that and called it a witch hunt every time it happened.
It's not an example of undermining confidence in a presidential election to say it's Russia, it was Russia. That's what they hinted at, and I've been told that is high crimes and misdemeanors to do it.
We want to agree to disagree. Could Trump upend the Washington Commanders Stadium deal? Well, we're going to get into it next. Don't go anywhere.